sports fans, ASMR Sports back in your business. Today we've got some Pokemon cards to open, and I wanted to take this opportunity to make a video where I talk about kind of thoughts I have about collecting Pokemon cards from the viewpoint of somebody who has, like many of my subscribers to this channel, a lot of experience with sports cards, because I often, in my mind anyways, make comparisons between the Pokemon card collecting world and sports cards, and I feel like some of those thoughts may be useful to share with you all if any of you were ever curious about collecting Pokemon cards, or you might wonder, like, what is the deal with, how popular Pokemon cards are right now, and, should I, as a sports card collector, possibly get into Pokemon cards at this point when the market is very, very hot for Pokemon cards. So I'm gonna try to answer those sorts of questions, and we're gonna open some of these cards. So first I want to start with a little bit about this product. This is the so these two little collections here, little, I don't know which, blister packs. One of these is from the Black Bolt set, and one is from the White Flare set. And these two sets are sort of unique in that they were released, kind of together as sort of a I don't know, like a group, or a kind of a, I don't know what to, as a tandem, shall we say, which Pokemon has never done before. They've done that in their Japanese sets, where they kind of have like, two sets that are related and that kind of together, make what ends up being one set in English. But anyways, right now these two sets are the most current sets out there. So the products that carry these sets, Black Bolt and White Flare, are what you're most likely to see out in retail establishments. However, it is very difficult to find any Pokemon products really out in the wild, and so you may not ever see these unless you go hunting for them. And if you do see any products that have Black Bolt and White Flare in them, you can be assured that buying them at MSRP, or just the sticker price at Walmart or Target or wherever, Barnes & Noble, is a good deal, because anything from this set, and frankly anything from any Pokemon set at this point that you can pick up at Target pricing, is going to be a good deal. For example, the MSRP on this set, I believe, is, or this product with 3 packs, is $15.99. So that's what you'd pay for this at Target, I believe. I actually got these from Target, but I have no idea what I paid for them. I could find the receipt, but I did look this up, and I think that the MSRP is $15.99 on this, and the price that these are selling for online is like $28. So if you sold these, you'd have like sort of shipping and taxes and all that to pay for. So you wouldn't really profit exactly $28. But this leads me to the first point I want to make about Pokemon cards that I think is useful to know if you're a sports card collector. And I'll open this up while I do that. So I mentioned the price of $28 for this. This is the kind of market price, right? Like, I looked online, and I'll show you where I looked online for pricing. But when things have a market price of X dollars, what seems to be the norm for Pokemon cards is that if you were to sell cards at like a card show, or if you were to sell them at on Facebook Marketplace, or if you were to sell them, on eBay or TCG Player, which are these, obviously eBay, but TCG Player, maybe you don't know if you're a sports card collector, but these online marketplaces, you would expect to get, at least in the market we're in today, you would expect to get, basically the market price, or some, pretty close approximation of it. And that I feel is pretty unique. Because I feel like in sports cards, most people are pretty unwilling to pay market price for things. They'll look at the comps and they'll expect to get a discount on those comps, and that does happen in the Pokemon world, but really it's only generally, I think, expected that, if you're a dealer at a card show, you will pay, 80% roughly. Sometimes it's 75, sometimes it's 85. But if you're a dealer at a card show and you're buying cards from the people at the card show, the, attendees of the card show, you're going to get that discount. But if you are a dealer selling to that public, it's generally accepted that the public will pay market price, and there's not a ton of haggling. There is haggling, if people are buying 3-4 cards, or if it's a higher dollar card, there's a little more kind of like margin for for dealing with, then you will see some haggling between the average attendee of a card show and dealers. But compared to sports cards, haggling is, I think, a very much a smaller kind of factor in pricing. So so this card is cool. This is a full art card, meaning the entire card is taken up by the image, and that's compared to a base card, which will have some like background here, and you'll only have an image in the top part. So if you see a full art card, it's probably got some value to it if it's coming from a pack. In this case, it's a promo, and historically, sometimes these promos are not worth that much, but these days, everything Pokemon is worth, something, and this probably has some value to it. We'll look it up right now so I can kind of show you what I mean with this market pricing situation. I'm going to bring you over to TCG Player. Now, this website is, sort of the Bible for looking up card prices. And actually, this price was, this site was bought by eBay recently, so we'll have to see if they make significant changes to it. But basically, it's a marketplace, and we'll look at we can find this card here. So that's the Japanese. I think it's this one. Yeah, so this one. Alright, so this is a pretty low dollar. It's a pretty low dollar card right now. As I guess to be expected, because it's one that comes in every one of these packs. So there's a lot of them out there, but it did start up, at a kind of $5 range, and then drop down over the course of a week or so. But anyways, my point is, on the pricing, you look at the pricing, and the price on this is basically, $1.41 plus $1.31 shipping. That's the lowest price, which is about $3. And then you can look at like what these have sold for. Okay, actually, it has sold for quite a bit less. But basically, I would expect to, sell this card for $1.25 at a card show and not get a whole lot of flack from people that want it. If they want it, they'll just buy it for that $1.25 because they can look up the market price and they can see that's what it is, and we'll be off to the races. Although cheapest price now, again, is going to be closer to $3 because of the shipping, and I think that these historical prices generally include shipping. So Um, I see most of these are multiple purchases, so there's probably like a flat shipping fee. And then, they got 4 for $1.26 each, plus that small shipping fee of like $1 or $2. This one that sold one, I don't know what the story is there, because that should have a shipping fee included in it. But anyways, the point is, people generally respect, like the market price of stuff in Pokemon cards more so, much more so than in sports cards. And I like that a lot. I tell people all that I'm like this old guy at a card show with a beard and his stories of yesteryear. But I tell people it's like, and probably most of my audience will have no idea what the hell I'm talking about because you're all too young. But when I was a kid, I was just getting started in collecting. It was like the late '80s, and you'd go to card shows, and we all sort of had a tacit agreement that we would honor the pricing that was in the monthly price guide that came out called Beckett magazine. And maybe you got I don't know, 5% off that price if you were buying a bunch. But generally speaking, if the price guide price for your Greg Jeffries 1988 Fleer card was $8, you were gonna pay $8 or $7.50 for that card, and there wasn't a whole lot of haggling going on there. And I think that was a pretty cool situation. I feel like it was it felt like your cards were a lot more liquid, right? That you knew what you could sell them for. You didn't have to worry that when you tried to sell the thing, you were gonna end up selling it for 30% off the Beckett price or whatever. You knew that it was probably gonna sell, at least if it was a relatively popular card, that it was gonna sell for the price in the price guide, and that was that. These days, I feel like that's not at all the case with sports cards, particularly because in sports cards there's so many parallels. For I don't know, let's say an Aaron Judge rookie card. There's like a ton of parallels of that card. Actually, not so many because that's from 2017. But in like modern rookie cards, like a modern football rookie out of whatever, a 2024 product, there's like 80 parallels for that card, and oftentimes you may not find a recent market sale for that, so you don't know exactly what the pricing is at that moment. But this is another thing about Pokemon cards, folks. There's no parallels. There's the cards in the set, and some of them are kind of rare SP type cards because they're just not nearly as common as the base cards, but they're not parallels. They're just cards that are harder to find, but not impossible. Some cards, it would take 1,000 packs to get that card, if you wanted to play the averages. But that's another thing I love about Pokemon cards is we're all kind of chasing the same thing, right? We're not chasing 50, 80, 100 different parallels. We're chasing the same card. So that can mean that, pop counts of graded cards can be quite high, but there's still enough demand to make those cards very valuable because there's, we're all chasing the same cards. And I feel like that is also reminiscent of like the late 80s, early 90s card market before we had this explosion of auto cards and parallel cards and things like that in the sports card world that made the sports card market what it is today. Now, we may see some of this kind of stuff and in other collectible card games like Magic the Gathering. You are starting to see, as of a few years ago, them that introduce products that have serial number cards, and those cards sell for sometimes like $10,000-$20,000 if they're the kind of the most popular card in the set. And there was one set that came out for Magic the Gathering a few years ago. It was a Lord of the Rings set, and there was a card in there that was a 1 of 1, and I don't think they usually do that. I think they usually have higher numbering on their serial number cards, but there was a 1 of 1 card because of the One Ring, sort of phenomenon of Lord of the Rings, and that card sold for like, I don't know, $2 or $3 million. I think it was like Post Malone who ended up buying it at auction. But for the most part, nowhere in TCG do you have anything like the serialization and the like 1 of 1 stuff and the multiple parallels that you see in sports cards. So I could see that coming to Pokemon eventually, and it almost seems inevitable in my view. I think if you ask Pokemon collectors, long-time Pokemon, they would say, no, they're never going to do that. But I think it's just inevitable that it will happen. Anyways, the fact that it's not happening now, it does make Pokemon collecting very different than sports cards, and I, for one, find it very refreshing. So we're getting skunked in these 2 packs. I find that very refreshing compared to sports cards. So, that's another kind of thing that struck me when I started getting into Pokemon cards. So we paid at $15.99, these packs are, about $5.30 a piece. And so far we've gotten really nothing of any value. And so, just like sports cards, you can definitely lose your shirt on buying sealed packs, but I actually think it's maybe a little bit easier to get your money back. So we've got a Zekrom EX, and you may think, oh wow, look at that shiny card and all them cool stars, that's got to be worth something, right? Well, not so much. The cards still look like this, where they have the EX, and then it's, kind of shiny, but the half of the card is kind of covered up by, background here. These tend to not be very valuable, so this might be worth $1 or $2. Zekrom is one of the, kind of more relevant Pokemon characters in this particular product, so it may have $1 or $2 value. I'm not going to look it up, but that would be my guess. It's maybe worth $1 or $2, but not much. So we opened, $16 here worth of packs, and we got a promo that's worth probably $2, $3, and then another card worth $1 or $2. So you're looking at like whatever 30% of your money back. But we're not going to stop there, folks. We're going to keep going. Let's see what we can see here in this other set here, White Flare. So yeah, so those are like, I don't know, some of the thoughts that I have about collecting and opening and valuing Pokemon cards versus sports cards. I hope we do get kind of a more valuable card here, so we can sort of go through the process of looking it up value-wise. And so hopefully you can see that, buying these kinds of products does have some potential for yielding some nice value. The problem as of late is that, with Pokemon cards being so hard to find out in retail, and if you had to buy these products I'm opening at like $28 a piece, you would have a lot harder time getting your money back. But my recommendation, is that if you are going to buy stuff, in the aftermarket, you should probably not open it. You should hold on to it as a sealed product, which I know maybe some people are like, I don't want to collect sealed stuff. I want to open everything. Which people say that to me all the time, because I've always liked collecting sealed products in sports cards, non-sports cards, and now in Pokemon. So for me to open something like this is kind of a rarity. My kids open cards all the time, but I very rarely do. But I had these sitting next to me, and I've been wanting to do a Pokemon video on this channel, because mostly I do Pokemon on my other channel, which is like kind of a softly spoken delicious ASMR channel where people maybe don't necessarily know it's an ASMR channel, other than it's called Poke Relaxing, but who the hell reads titles of channels these days? So anyways, I love collecting sealed, and I think if you buy stuff at current market pricing, your best chance of coming out ahead is holding on to it for a couple of years, maybe 3-4 years, and hoping that it goes up in value. If you open up the cards, and try to sell those, you're probably going to be having a hard time getting profit. But we do have a real nice hit here, so let's see what it is. Well, okay, it's not the most valuable card, but it is a nice card. This is a full art card. It's got the image on the whole card. It has some texturing to it. There's kind of like a little fingerprint pattern on this, and that's what Pokemon puts on their kind of more rare, valuable cards. Unfortunately, this card is not of a Pokemon, but instead of a trainer, which is a human that that controls Pokemon. Pokemon are like animal type things that exist in the world in which Pokemon operates, and then there are trainers who control them, and then they have battles with each other, their Pokemon. And so the trainer cards, interestingly, in the English sets, are typically not very desired. People just don't collect these, but in Japan they really do like these trainers. So in the Japanese sets, the same card will maybe be worth like 5 times as much as it is in English. So kind of an interesting phenomenon there, where the Japanese version of these cards, the collectors in Japan value very different things than, well, not very different, but occasionally different things than the English cards. So we're looking for cards that are full art like this, that have the like little fingerprinty texture there, but that are of Pokemon. And if we find something that meets that description, we'll probably have something that's worth at least $4 or $5, and possibly much more. Now there are some really interesting chase cards in these sets, like sort of the top most valuable cards, and they're all monochrome cards. So they're either like all white or all black or all red cards. And when I say all, I don't mean like they're just one shade of black. Obviously that would just be a black card, but they're sort of varying shades of gray and black to create a really cool looking and unique card. So I'd love to pull one of those cards to show you, but I doubt we'll see it. So, we did get another nice hit there. I see some texturing on this card, so we'll see what happens when we get there. And these common cards, are just kind of useless. If you play the game, they can be useful. If you collect like the set, if you want to complete a whole set of this product, you would want these base cards. But other than that, they just sit in a box. And eventually my plan is to sort all of them and by set and hopefully by number, but I doubt I'll get that far. I have a lot of cards like this. And then I'm going to just kind of see if I can get them in the hands of people that are collecting sets, or they want certain cards for, their game playing. And then they can find them relatively easy. So this is a really cool card. So Reshiram is kind of one of the bigger hits or one of the more popular Pokemon in this set. And certain Reshiram cards, like the one I was talking about, where it's all white, it's an all white card. There's no like background of a different color. That's a very valuable one. This one is significantly lesser value, but it is a full art card. It does have the texture. It is, a level of rarity that's fairly high. These 2 gold, silver stars, tell you the rarity. What you want is 2 gold stars. And then you've got the most rare card in the, the most rare and valuable card in the set. There's also 3 gold stars, but those tend to not be super valuable for whatever reason. Because they're usually these gold cards that people don't really collect for some strange reason. But anyways, we will look that one up, because I'm not sure if that's maybe a $4 card or possibly like a $10 plus card. But if it's the latter, it certainly helps us gain a lot of the value of at least this one particular blister product back. So we'll look that up here once we get through this final pack. just some kind of basic holographic card. But opening packs is fun, but you have to, get the entertainment value out of it, because you're never gonna, profit or sort of come out ahead in value by buying sealed products. Even if you get it at MSRP, you're not gonna be able to buy those packs and then open them and then, have a good chance of getting your money back in terms of market value of the cards. You certainly may, right? Just like in sports cards, you could get that big hit, but it's not very common. So, if you don't get entertainment value out of opening these cards, then you probably shouldn't open them just for monetary reasons. But again, this is this is a hobby. So hopefully a lot of people do get, sort of entertainment value. That's a cool little energy card there with a little bit of a hollow pattern on it. Let's leave that one up. So, it's similar to sports cards like that, in that, if you want to kind of get as much value as you can out of your dollars, then you won't open up the cards. But if you do enjoy opening cards and kind of looking at, seeing all the card designs and even some of those base cards, which I think is more true when you start collecting Pokemon cards. And then maybe, like, as every new set comes out and you haven't seen all the cards in the set, you might want to open a box of that set. So we're going to look this one up here. So anyways, I'm saying, like, for me, I do always open some cards from every new set of Pokemon that comes out. And I enjoy that, but I don't open a ton of stuff. I mostly buy sealed stuff. Hang on to it. I love looking at the box art. The box art of sealed products. I love hunting for like old products on eBay. So this is the one that you want here. This Reshiram, kind of all white. And actually, I see that the rarity level on this is kind of a new thing. It's like one solid star and one hollow star, which is new. They've never had a rarity level like that before this set, where they have these monochrome cards. And there's also a black one from the Black Bolt set that we opened first. Anyways, you can see this one's worth like $400. So that's definitely one you want to get. But what we have is quite different. This is actually another one of the Reshiram cards I'd mentioned. The Reshiram, again, is a fairly popular Pokemon that is featured in this set, so a bunch of his cards are, high value in here, and that's another one of them. But what we have is quite a bit less valuable. There it is, yeah. So I thought it was going to be maybe $4 or $5, and I appear to be pretty spot on here. So you have $4 or $5 of value on this card, and not breaking the $10 barrier, but still a pretty cool card, and a nice one of, a more popular. I wish I could have got that one. That would be friggin' sweet. This thing looks really cool in person, I bet, with all those cool kind of rainbowy colors there. And there's other even, less valuable cards, like when we pulled that shiny looking EX card in the first Black Bolt product. I mentioned that these kinds of cards don't have much value, and this one is, not even $1 here in market price. So you can see that there, but that's kind of a quick view at the Reshiram cards in this set. So, anyways, I think I keep doing that. Pressing the wrong button here. So, I don't know. It's hard to convey too much in a relatively short little video here. It's half an hour, but I've kind of always wanted to kind of do more content on this channel that explains Pokemon card collecting a bit to my sports card enthusiast audience. Even though I know there are definitely some Pokemon card collectors in this in my subscriber base. So if you have questions, ask, and then I'm sure those people will answer them for you, since I'm not super expert in Pokemon cards by any stretch. But I do know a lot about certain aspects of collecting, like particularly the sealed stuff, I'm pretty knowledgeable on at this point. Since I've been, kind of buying stuff for a while now, and kind of exploring all of the little nooks and crannies of the sealed Pokemon product marketplace during that time. I gotta show you guys one thing here, because I'm looking at this page here where we looked up Reshiram, and this card here, Reshiram EX, is from a set called Next Destinies, and I actually just bought a sealed booster box of Next Destinies for $6,000, which is one of the, well, it's probably the second most expensive booster box I bought of Pokemon cards, and I found what I thought was a pretty good deal and kind of researched that for a couple of weeks before pulling the trigger on it, and I'm very pleased with the box that I received. So this is one of the better cards in that set. We could actually see all of the cards here. Yep. And it's interesting, that set, it looks like it has some Zekrom, Reshiram cards. It has some of the better cards in the set, so it's actually kind of an earlier, well, it's a set that features a lot of the same Pokemon as these current Black Bolt White Flare sets that are out in stores now, so it's kind of a fun little throwback here to look at these cards. But this card's really cool. Mewtwo is one of the most popular Pokemon. He's kind of a baddie, but a character of some complexity that I'll leave you to learn more about if you're interested in sort of researching some of these characters a bit. But you start to learn about, some of these Pokemon and why they're interesting, and maybe even watch a couple cartoons with your kids, sort of thing. But anyways, I wanted to show you a little bit about this Next Destinies, and I kind of wanted to look myself a little bit, because I've seen the top cards in Next Destinies, this set from like 2012 or something. But it's been a little while, so I wanted to kind of reacquaint myself. So, but in any event, I guess this is my first video on, the topic of Pokemon card collecting from the perspective of a sports card collector. I hope you sports card collectors found it somewhat interesting and useful. And, I would say this. I would recommend to anybody, any sports card collector or anybody generally, to take a shot at sort of collecting Pokemon cards, because I find it immensely enjoyable. I love seeing a lot of the older cards that I've never seen before, because I've only been collecting Pokemon cards for like a year and a half. I love, kind of seeing what kind of deals I can get on sealed products, and sometimes singles. I love, when I sell cards at like a card show, I love talking to collectors that, often have collections that they bring in, and that, they want you to take a look at for selling, or for selling to you. And sometimes I buy cards. More frequently I would trade them. But oftentimes I just look at cards and I think, oh man, these are so cool. Like I don't really want to try to acquire these, because, they're older cards and they have a lot of condition sensitivity, and buying them would be pretty risky. But like just seeing them is a really fun experience every time I look at somebody's collection and they have like some older cards, which is most collectors, it seems. I'm just like super excited to do it. It's like, it's like just as fun almost as, pulling cards like that, or pulling, chase cards from current packs. So there's just a ton of stuff that I personally find super entertaining and fun and exciting about collecting Pokemon cards. And I think there's just a lot of ways to do it. Just like with sports cards, you could be a player collector, you could be a team collector, you could be a sealed collector, you could be just a, collector of a particular sport. You could collect everything. There's a million ways to collect sports cards, and there's a million ways to collect Pokemon cards. And it does take, you do have to kind of figure some stuff out. But that's kind of why I want to make this video, is just explain a little bit about this sort of stuff, because I never really saw anything like this when I was learning about Pokemon as a sports card collector. the same questions as I did. You know, if they're trying to get into Pokemon cards for the first time and they have some experience with sports cards. So that's why I kind of want to do this sort of content. If you're a sports card collector and you have questions about Pokemon, please do put them in the comments. And if you're like me and you know you collect both, and you have sort of like, I don't know, light bulb moments where you're like, oh wow, yeah, this definitely is something that you need to know as a collector of sports cards. You know, if you're getting into Pokemon cards, please post that as well, because I think the comment section for this video could be kind of a little library of, you know, things that sports card collectors need to know about Pokemon if they're interested in learning about it. Maybe you don't care at all, and that's perfectly fine too. I don't suggest that everybody collect everything, but I don't know. I personally have found a ton of enjoyment from Pokemon cards, and I kind of got in at the right time because everything has really gone up significantly over that time, and it feels a lot like, you know, the sports card boom of 2020 and, you know, first half of 2021, and second half of 2019 for that matter. And that was a very fun time, I felt, to be in the sports card world. Things have really cooled down since then, but I don't know, if you like a very active market, you like one that's generally moving up, you know, week to week. That's certainly what the Pokemon space is right now. It certainly won't always be like that, but you know, it might be like that for another 6 months, another 12 months. And if you like that environment, then now's the time. But that's what we got for today. Hope you're doing fantastic out there. We'll see y'all next time.